Lesson 64, Concession and Contrast. Hello and welcome to this lesson. Today, we are going to talk about concession and contrast, the words and expressions we use to acknowledge one point, but then introduce another, often more important, point that contrasts with it. This is very useful for debates, arguments, and nuanced discussions. So, let us get started. Verbs of concession. First, let us look at verbs of concession. Concession means accepting one part of an idea or fact, but putting another, more important argument or fact against it. It can be expressed with a conjunction like although, an adverb like nevertheless, or through verbs like those in the table below. I acknowledge or accept that he has worked hard, but it is not enough. Acknowledge is more formal than accept. Both mean I agree, but I admit I was wrong, but I still think we were right to doubt her. This means I accept I am guilty of what I am accused of. I concede that you are right about the goal, but not the method. This means you have won this point in our argument. It is rather formal and used in debates or arguments. Adverbs and other phrases showing contrast. Now let us look at adverbs and other phrases that show contrast. These examples are fairly informal. Okay, you are sorry. That is all well and good, or that is all very well, but how are you going to pay us back? This accepts the point, but introduces a problem. You should not seem so surprised. After all, I did warn you. This means you should have known. It is all very well saying you love dogs, but who will take it for walks if we do get one? Again, this acknowledges one point, but introduces a practical objection. He is boring, and he is rather cold and unfriendly, but for all that, he is your uncle and we should invite him. This means despite that. These examples are more formal. Admittedly, she put a lot of effort in, but it was all wasted. This accepts the point, but then contrasts it. I thought she did not like me. In fact, the reverse was true. This means the opposite was true. In Europe, they use metric measurements. In contrast, the USA still uses many non-metric measurements. This highlights a difference. It is not actually raining now, on the other hand. It may rain later, so take the umbrella. This presents an alternative viewpoint. Collocating phrases for contrast. Finally, let us look at some collocating phrases that express strong contrast. When it comes to politics, Jamie and Isla are poles apart. They have completely opposite views. There is a world of difference between being a friend and a lover. They're extremely different. There is a great divide between city residents and people who live in the country, a major separation. A yawning gap divides the rich and poor in many countries, a large and obvious gap. There is a huge discrepancy between his ideals and his actions, a big difference between what he says and what he does. Language help. Before we finish, let us clarify the difference between on the other hand and on the contrary. On the other hand means that is true, and this is also true if we look at it from a different viewpoint. For example, life in the country is nice and quiet. On the other hand, you have to go a long way to get to the shops. On the contrary is a rather formal expression which means that is not true. The opposite is true. For example, A. You must be pleased with your exam results. B. On the contrary, I thought they would be much better. So, that is our lesson on concession and contrast. These verbs, adverbs, phrases, and collocations will help you acknowledge points while introducing contrasting ideas, making your arguments more balanced and nuanced.